Pixelkin.
Hey everyone, it's Simone and Courtney from pixelkin.org, and this week on The Issue we're going to be talking about HD remastered video games. I think it's really important because we get into situations like we did with the Zoombinis game, where we played this game on computers when we were tiny babies in the 90s, and then we could never play it again because that technology became completely obsolete. And then they just recently remade the game for iPads, and that brought the game to a whole new generation of kids who, again, in a few more generations will probably be missing the game again because we have a huge archiving problem with video games since they are so dependent on the platform that you make them for.
Yeah, it's really frustrating to watch, as opposed to when a remake of a classic movie is coming out. That can be really frustrating because you're like, why do we need a new RoboCop? The original RoboCop is still great, but you can't watch, the video games don't have that. I can't play most of the games that I grew up playing on like my Mac in the 1990s. You're not gonna find Crystal Crazy anywhere or like Step on It.
Jumpstart 4th grade.
Jumpstart 4th grade.
Where is it?
Jumpstart 4th grade.
We'll never know if we actually love this game because we haven't played it since we were in 4th grade.
We can't even go back to our old computers and try to play them because assuming that
dumpster somewhere.
Yeah, assuming even if we'd kept our old computers, I mean, in that sense, having re-releases is so cool. Being able to get in touch with this shared nostalgia. I mean, some of these problems could be solved if more consoles did backwards compatibility, but adding in backwards compatibility to your console is not really like flipping a switch. It's a quite complicated technological process. I love that the Wii U is backwards compatible. When Wii first came out, it was backwards compatible with the GameCube.
But again, that's just one generation each time of backwards compatibility, right? So.
And that also doesn't bring into account the fact that like when Majora's Mask came out for the 3DS, that was so good. I love the re-release because the original one was made in this really strict timeline. They had 1 year to do the entire game, which led to a lot of really great creative decisions, but it also led to a lot of bad decisions and mistakes. And like one of my biggest complaint about the original Majora's Mask is that there's lots of times when the gameplay is just uncomfortable. There's bad UI design everywhere. And they were able to go back and fix all of that with the 3DS remake. So now you get the same fantastic story, but it's just a million times better to play.
On the other hand, I know there are some games that people say really benefit from the original controls. Like everyone who loves the original Silent Hill game appreciates how awkward and difficult the controls were because the game itself is really, it makes you uncomfortable and the controls also make you uncomfortable. So sure, I think there are some arguments for preserving original games, but again, we come up against the problem of how are we going to play them? How are we going to get new people to appreciate that game, and how are we going to preserve the story?
So how do you feel about the Final Fantasy VII situation where they're...
I feel great!
So they're doing an HD remaster that's all new gen fancy schmancy, and then they're also
graphics as the movie.
And then they've also just re-released just like a basic port of the original game.
My feeling about that is generally that Square Enix will re-release things as many times as they need to keep them in the public consciousness and make money. On the other hand, I know that people coming to that game now in this year won't appreciate the original for what it was. I still love the original, but you know what? I'm super excited to see everyone look beautiful and as hot as they look in the movies, in the game. There are so many cutscenes that I'm excited to see with the emotional weight that you can get from having a fully rendered CGI person instead of like a little stack of polygons, which looks kind of weird and triangular. I'm really excited for that.
It's one of the big complaints that you get when you're talking about remade movies is that it feels sometimes like Hollywood has no original ideas. They're just playing off our nostalgia to get a few extra bucks. There's also the argument to be made that's like, I mean, we're paying money for it. If this game is successful or if this movie remake is successful, it's because we went to the theaters and we went to the GameStops and we bought it, which means that there is a demand. You can't get too angry at the market flow when you are the market. And it's totally untrue to say that there's no original ideas in gaming. There's so many original things coming out all the time. And if you're frustrated that big companies like Nintendo aren't releasing enough new franchises, then go and support some indie creators.
And those indie games are probably the ones that may not make it to the next generation because their creators don't have the money to port them over. That's even more depressing. So how do you guys feel about video game remastering? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe to this channel to catch the next episode of The Issue.